a comedian that the Taliban has sadly killed. So, in Afghanistan, there is a TikTok comedian that, makes jokes about a bunch of things. But some of those jokes have to do with the Taliban. The man criticizes Taliban with some of his jokes on TikTok and continued to in front of these Taliban fighters. These Taliban fighters, as you can see, the one to his left and to his right, captured him, found him. And while they captured him, he didn't stop making jokes about them, even when they were, threatening to kill him. And so what they ended up doing is getting this man, dragging him away while he's making jokes about them and mocking them to their face and executing. So let's read a little bit about the story. Nazar Muhammad filmed being taken away from his home in Kandahar province. The video shows Taliban fighters sitting on either side of him, one with a Kalashnikov. One enters and slaps him repeatedly on the face as he makes jokes about the Taliban. He was later found dead after reportedly being shot and having his throat slit. This is the moment that Afghan comedian... Sorry about the poor quality of the zoom in. This is the moment that an Afghan comedian continued mocking Taliban fighters from the insurgent group and dragged him away from his home before executing him by firing squad. In a viral video filmed at the end of July, Nazar Muhammad, better known as Kasazwan, can be seen in the back of the car with an insurgent either side of him, one brandishing a Kalashnikov machine gun. According to Human Rights Watch, Chwan was killed by the Taliban at the end of July in Kandahar after the city fell to jihadists. So, the Taliban has been making a lot of statements about exactly how they've treated cities after they've captured them. One major thing they've been talking about is how they're gonna respect women's rights.
So would you believe in the democratic vote though? So would people be allowed to vote in women politicians?
Another major thing they're talking about is how everyone's gonna have access to education, how they're not going to, and the big thing, this is a third thing, these are all big things, but this is a big one. They're not going to go out and seek vengeance. They're not gonna go out and execute those who oppose them. They're not going to do it to people who collaborated with the enemy, quote unquote, the infidel Americans, and they're not going to do it with people who just worked with the Afghan government that has ruled the country for about 20 years now. This right here is the most petty example of how the Taliban is lying to you and lying to the world when they say that. If they can't even stop themselves from killing a comedian with no institutional power, who is known for TikTok jokes, then what's going to stop them from executing interpreters or civil society activists or protesters? Because, there were people who protested the Taliban as they marched into cities afterwards. They flew the old flag of the ANA, and they had, of course, their protest dispersed by gunfire. So if they can't even stop themselves from killing TikTok comedians, how can we trust them not to kill interpreters for all these people that are fleeing the country? They can pretend that they're going to give them amnesty. They can pretend that they're not going to hold any grudges. But we all know why people are clinging to the wheels of planes as they take off. It's because they know that if the Taliban captures them, their fate may very well be the same as this comedian, who all he did was crack a few jokes.
Occurred is occurred.
He was known for routines that poked fun at the Taliban through song and dance, including some that was uploaded to his TikTok account. In the video in his final moments, Muhammad continues to make jokes about the group after his capture, causing the Taliban fighters to his right to begin slapping him across the face. The man to his left is seen laughing throughout, being menacingly switching his gun for an even bigger looking firearm. Here is some of the footage. Obviously, I'm not going to show all of it, because I don't want to show the man getting struck. But here's him continuing to make jokes next to two Taliban fighters. That's pretty badass. Now, there is one other thing. Now, some people have tried to suggest that, Dylan, this is a fake story. Dylan, this is a fake story. You linked the Daily Mail or whatever. Well, just to be clear, the Taliban has admitted to doing this. So if any of you think that this is just a rumor or a fake story or not true, the Taliban has admitted to this. They've admitted that their soldiers went out and executed a guy for being a comedian. And this isn't the only person they executed. So they just straight up admitted it. That's the first thing. But this is not the only person they've executed. In fact, they've executed a decent amount of people. Oh, here it is. This one's from the New York Post. This is talking about a police chief that was executed by them. Now, there is video showing the Afghan police chief being executed by the Taliban after they captured an area that opposed them. But I'm not going to show it. But I can tell you what the video looked like. What the video looked like was it was this man. He was on his knees and he had a blindfold around his eyes. They then execute him while he's on his knees. He's no threat to anyone at all. They captured him. Again, the Taliban is saying they're not going to do this. They're not going to execute people. Everyone will be safe in their Afghanistan. They are lying to you. They are lying to you through their teeth. This is the Taliban, a group that engaged in ethnic cleansing against the Hazara population. They are not going to be friendly. They are not reformed. Disturbing footage has emerged of an Afghan police chief being executed by the Taliban after he surrendered to the militants, according to reports. Former BBC journalists posted the gruesome video, which appears to show the man, head of the police in the Baghdad province near Herat. Herat is also the area where the school is that Taliban fighters turned women away from. The man is seen in the clip kneeling blindfolded before several bullets ring out and his lifeless body flops to the ground. This is their public amnesty, Nawa wrote, referring to the Taliban's declaration this week amid the insurgents' attempt to present a moderate face after sweeping into power. The police chief was reportedly arrested by the Taliban during the blitz across the country on the way to the capital of Kabul, where they toppled the government on Sunday. The group shared the distressing clip through a Taliban-related network. Afghan security advisor Nasser Waziri told Newsweek, adding that the footage was verified by other police officers and government officials. Here is a picture. Obviously, I can't show the footage, but here is a picture of what he looked like before he was quickly executed by the Taliban. This is a brutal organization, and they're going to kill whoever they need to stay in power. When people started protesting them after they took over a lot of the area. By the way, the same area where the comedian was arrested, it was in Kandahar, which is the second biggest city in the country. After he was killed, about a month or two later, there were protests in the city. Not over his death specifically, but over Taliban rule. And what did the Taliban do? They dispersed the protests with gunfire. I'm telling you, the Taliban is going to be just like they were before. You might see a few changes here and there to keep public appearances up, but they're the same fundamentalist, religious theocracy, and fascist organization that they've always been. Okay. I think that's enough on this story. But I can't imagine personally trying to sell the narrative that you're going to let everybody have amnesty and you can't even not shoot the comedians who criticize you. That's like saying you love free speech and then the first people you arrest are the journalists. Like, you got to start a little lower than that if you want to keep up appearances. This is just bad propaganda. So the Taliban isn't going woke. So you know how the Taliban keeps using the word inclusive government? I don't think it's going to be that inclusive. I think our nice fellow right here might disagree with the idea that the Taliban is exactly an inclusive government. Wasn't inclusive for him, that's for damn sure. According to reports, photos showed him backed against a tree and then lying on the ground with his throat cut. The Taliban initially denied involvement in the star's death before admitting responsibility and confirming the two men in the car were Taliban. The group said the suspects have been arrested and will be tried in a Taliban court. The group alleged Nazar from Kandahar province was involved in the torture and killing of Taliban, adding that he should have faced a Taliban court instead of being immediately put to death. Yeah, I'm sure, buddy. Azar previously worked for the Afghan National Police, making him a target for revenge killings, and was known for his crude jokes and funny songs. He would regularly make fun of topics suggested by his followers, with the Taliban being no exception. His brutal killing at the end of July sparked fears of revenge killings as Afghanistan began falling city by city to the Taliban. Swan left behind a wife and daughters after his death. I'm gonna just not insult the name by not even attempting to. Whose daughter survived being shot in the head by Taliban militants. Well, that's Malala Yousaf. In Pakistan in 2012, was among those paid tribute to on social media. Others who denounced the death included Farah Danish, the Afghan vice president before the Taliban took over Kabul this month. He said that slapping Zawan was the same as slapping all of the Afghan people, and said his killing was against Afghan culture. It was also one of the first major dents in the insurgent group's attempt to brand itself as Taliban 2.0. Leaders promised that no harm would come to those working for the government, the U.S. military, anyone associated with American organizations. Apparently, unless they're a police chief or TikTokers. Are you saying Biden was wrong to leave? Okay. 1 second. He does not know what he does. He does not know what he says. For he is ignorant, and we must forgive him, for he knows not what he does. Okay. So, borders do not dictate moral consideration. Just because the American military is pulling out of the country does not mean that Afghan lives are worthless. It does not mean that Afghan lives and Afghan suffering should not be covered, and it does not mean that their stories do not deserve to be heard by the wider public. You do not need to believe that we needed to have permanent occupation in Afghanistan to understand that executing a comedian is bad. I would hope that if somebody was in Japan and they heard that Joe Rogan was dragged out and killed because he made jokes about Joe Biden, then the entire world would hopefully say, wow, that's terribly messed up. That's horrible. Let's give that the proper attention it deserves. The USA executes fuckers all the... Okay, I'm just gonna pretend that you're a lot more good faith than you are. I can't think of a story anytime recently where the United States sent out a death squad to go execute comedians, okay? I can think of executions. I'm against the death penalty in all of its iterations. But I can't think of any time recently where we set out death squads to execute comedians.
Occurred is occurred.
See, this is the thing. If you were to just say yeah, I believe executions across the world should be covered, or I believe all executions should be covered, or I believe all war crimes should be covered, then you'd get all your bases. You'd be covering all your bases. But it's like, well, America did this, America did that, so therefore, let's just forget about Afghans. Fuck Afghans. Who cares? God, man. It feels like people are so disconnected.